Late January, 1888. They'll be dead before the week is over. Her brother-in-law, Bram Veilhart, never raised his voice. He simply closed the front door and watched the young widow Junia Veilhart and her 10-year-old daughter Elsie walk toward the old lambing barn with 2 blankets and the last of their belongings. His wife, Odette, folded her arms. A barn is more than enough for them. No one argued. Across Rime Creek Table, the north wind was already gathering behind a wall of gray clouds. 3 weeks later, the storm finally let go. Every cabin across the settlement stood dark beneath the snow. Chimneys that had smoked for generations had gone cold. Frost covered windows from the inside. Doors never opened. Only one thin ribbon of smoke still climbed into the pale morning sky. It rose from the very barn where the widow had been sent in disgrace. Fresh hoofprints surrounded the doorway. The cattle were still alive. So were the people inside. Nobody understood how. To them, a barn had always been the coldest place on a ranch. Junia had seen something entirely different. Weeks earlier, while everyone else looked at those weathered boards and imagined a grave, she had quietly begun studying the building as though it were waiting to reveal a secret. That secret was a lesson her husband had left behind. Only 2 months earlier, Rowan Veilhart had walked into the first bitter cold of the season to chop wood. He slipped and fell down an icy slope. He never returned. When the search party found him the next morning, fresh snow had nearly hidden the tracks that led down the frozen bank. Rowan left behind no fortune, no large herd, and no written journal. What remained was something harder to lose. During long winter evenings, he had often run a calloused hand along the cabin walls while Junia watched. He never blamed the cold itself. Instead, he searched for the tiny places where moving air found a way inside. He liked to say that the plains never stole warmth all at once. They took it one crack at a time. "The wind isn't the coldest thing out here," he had once told Junia. "The smallest gap is." Those words stayed with her after everything else had been taken away. Elsie remembered something different. Hanging from a wooden peg inside the old barn was her father's worn leather gloves. They had remained there since the last morning he rode out. Nobody had touched them. As Junia stepped through the barn doorway, Elsie's eyes found those gloves almost immediately, and for the first time since leaving the house, she felt as if a small part of her father had been waiting there all along. Bram returned 3 days after Rowan's burial carrying a folded deed inside his coat. He spoke calmly, almost kindly, as though the decision had already become a fact that nobody should question. The ranch's business, he explained, needed steady management, and the main house had to serve as headquarters for the men. He had already decided that Junia and her daughter would move into the old lambing barn, where they could care for a handful of leftover animals while he took over the ranch. Odette stood beside him with folded hands and a gentle smile that never reached her eyes. She called the old lambing barn a practical arrangement, even a generous one. Shelter was shelter, she said, and plenty of women had endured worse. Then she looked at Elsie instead of Junia. "You should learn where your place is," she said softly. "Life is easier when you accept it." Junia answered neither insult nor excuse. She gathered the family's quilts, a kettle, and the few tools Rowan had left behind. Elsie carried the smaller bundle without complaint, though her fingers trembled beneath its weight. As Bram closed the front door, he glanced toward the weathered barn. "It will be enough for them." Those quiet words drifted away on the north wind, unnoticed by everyone, except the woman who would one day prove exactly how wrong they were. The old lambing barn smelled of dry straw, worn leather, and cattle that had sheltered there through better winters. Most people would have seen nothing beyond that. Junia saw something else entirely. Her eyes followed every wall instead of the floor. She watched loose dust drifting through narrow cracks where the north wind slipped inside. She paused beneath the rafters, measuring the empty space that would have to be warmed if nothing changed. Then she studied the abandoned lambing pens tucked into the southeast corner, where 2 thick timber walls already blocked part of the weather. Outside, the wind kept searching for another opening. Inside, she noticed stacks of rye straw bales left from the previous season, several burlap grain sacks filled with oat chaff, and rough planks leaning against a post. None of them looked valuable on their own. Together, they began to resemble pieces of a solution. Elsie quietly followed her mother from one corner to another, waiting for instructions that never came. Junia wasn't searching for a place to sleep. She was reading the building the way Rowan had once read the sky before a storm. Her hand rested against the north wall for a long moment. Cold pushed through the boards in thin, invisible streams. That was the enemy. The temperature itself could not be stopped, but moving air could. She finally looked down at Elsie and spoke so softly that only the little girl could hear. "We only need one warm place." At that moment, the barn stopped looking like a punishment. It became a problem waiting for the right answer. Before touching another tool, Junia counted what the barn already possessed. 7 beef cattle stood along the center stalls. 2 milk cows waited near the old lambing pens. A gray mule shifted its weight beside the feed rack, while an aging mare rested quietly at the far end of the aisle. Most neighbors would have called them livestock. Junia counted them differently. She led Elsie to the nearest milk cow and gently placed the girl's small hand against its broad side. "Leave it there." For several seconds, neither of them spoke. The steady warmth beneath the animal's hide slowly reached Elsie's fingers, then her palm. The heat never rushed. It simply continued, quiet and constant, with every slow breath the cow released into the cold air. Junia picked up a handful of dry rye straw and let it fall between her fingers. "This won't make us warm," she said, "but it can stop warmth from leaving." She spread the straw across a gap between 2 rough boards, then held a small feather near the crack. The draft weakened almost immediately. Nothing had become hotter. The moving air had simply lost its easy path. That was the lesson Rowan had trusted more than any expensive stove. Fire created heat for a while. Living bodies created it every hour they remained healthy. Dry straw offered something just as valuable by trapping quiet pockets of air where the wind could no longer steal what the animals gave away. Elsie rested her hand against the milk cow once more. This time she smiled without saying anything. For the first time since leaving the house, she understood that warmth could come from something alive, not only from flames. Junia walked the length of the barn twice before moving a single bale. She wasn't looking for the largest space. She was searching for the smallest one that could safely hold life. The abandoned lambing room in the southeast corner caught her attention. 2 heavy timber walls already blocked the prevailing wind, and 2 adjoining stalls could be folded into the same shelter with only a few changes. Together they measured roughly 12 feet by 14 feet. Most of the barn would remain cold. That no longer mattered. She marked the outline with the toe of her boot, then began dragging rye straw bales into place. Elsie followed behind, pushing the lighter ones until the little room slowly emerged from the larger building. The walls seemed to grow thicker with every trip, while the empty barn beyond them grew less important. Junia wasn't trying to defeat the winter. She was making sure winter had less space to conquer. The milk cows would stand just beyond the inner wall. The mule and old mare could remain close enough for their body heat to drift inward without crowding the sleeping corner. Every decision shortened the distance between warmth and the people who needed it most. Elsie stopped beside the outline scratched into the dirt floor and looked around the tiny space. "Is this really enough?" Junia rested another straw bale against the wall before answering. "Enough is a kind of mercy." The little girl looked around again. The room suddenly seemed different. It wasn't small because they had lost everything. It was small because every unnecessary foot of cold air had become an enemy, and her mother had decided not to fight battles that didn't need to be fought. That narrow corner was no longer just part of a barn. It had become the heart of everything they intended to protect. The next morning began before sunrise. Junia wanted the walls finished before the first real blast of northern wind reached the ridge. She continued stacking rye straw bales, 2 layers thick along the north and west sides of the shelter, pressing each bale tightly against the boards without crushing the straw inside. Rowan had once warned that flattened straw lost much of its value. Air trapped between the stems did the real work. Whenever a narrow gap remained, Elsie pushed burlap sacks filled with oat chaff into the opening until daylight disappeared. She carried a small piece of charcoal and marked every crack they had sealed with a short black line across the timber. By noon, the marks formed a rough map of victories around the little room. Outside, Junia turned to something most settlers hated: snow. Instead of shoveling it away from the weather wall, she packed it into a low bank stretching along the outside foundation. The drift rose only to her knees, sloping gently away from the barn. When the next gust arrived, loose snow skimmed across the smooth bank instead of swirling beneath the boards. The wind no longer struck the wall head-on. It slid upward and kept moving. Elsie stood quietly, watching her mother shape frozen snow with the back of a shovel. "I thought snow was the enemy." Junia looked over the white ridge she had just built. "It is," she answered, "until it starts working for us." The little girl reached down and packed another armful into place. For the first time in her life, she saw winter itself becoming part of a shelter instead of something that only had to be endured. By late afternoon, the walls had grown thick enough to quiet the wind, but Junia knew every trip through the doorway would still carry cold air inside. She searched the barn until she found 2 worn wool horse pads and the heavy canvas Rowan had once used to cover wagon loads during spring storms. Instead of hanging a single barrier, she suspended the canvas several feet behind the first curtain of wool. The narrow space between them formed a small airlock. Anyone entering would pass through one layer, pause for a heartbeat, then slip through the second before the outside wind could rush into the shelter. It cost nothing except a little rope and careful spacing. The sleeping area needed just as much attention. Junia laid weathered planks across short blocks of timber, lifting the bed several inches above the frozen earth. Dry rye straw filled the space beneath the platform, leaving a pocket of still air between the ground and the blankets above. Cold soil could no longer draw warmth directly from sleeping bodies. Elsie climbed onto the unfinished platform and looked toward the doorway. The old canvas swayed gently with each passing breeze. That was Father's. Junia nodded without stopping her work. "It still is." The words settled over the room as quietly as the canvas itself. Rowan's cover was no longer waiting for another wagon trip across the prairie. It had become part of the home he would never see, standing guard over the wife and daughter he had left behind. In that small shelter, memory was no longer something to preserve on a wall. It had become something strong enough to help keep them alive. One piece was still missing. Junia needed a little fire, but only a little. The settlement measured winter by the size of a woodpile. She measured it by how little heat escaped once it had been made. Leaving Elsie to watch the barn, Junia hitched the old mare to her wagon and made the bitter, freezing drive into the center of the settlement. She wasn't looking for an expensive iron stove or cords of oak. A cracked molasses barrel sat behind Larkin Mowry's feed shed beside a bent length of stovepipe that nobody wanted. Larkin, the settlement's wood seller, watched as Junia loaded both into her wagon instead of buying another stack of firewood. "That scrap won't keep you alive," he said with a laugh. "You'll be back for real fuel before the snow gets serious." Junia simply thanked him and drove away. Back at the barn, she cut the barrel in half, shaped a small firebox, and sealed every joint with clay mixed with fine wood ash. The curved stovepipe slipped through the wall at a gentle angle before rising above the roofline. She chose a place close to the stone footing where the ground could not catch fire, leaving plenty of open space around it. Elsie watched her mother test every seam with the back of her hand before lighting a handful of dry twigs. A thin ribbon of smoke climbed smoothly through the pipe without drifting back into the shelter. The little stove warmed a kettle of water. Its dried, damp gloves hung nearby. During the coldest nights, it would soften the sharpest edge of the air. That was all Junia expected from it. The cattle would remain the furnace. The straw would guard the warmth. The stove would simply help both do their work a little better. As the small flame settled into glowing coals, Elsie finally understood why her mother had ignored Larkin's laughter. Winning against winter had never depended on building the biggest fire. It depended on refusing to waste the warmth that was already there. That evening, Junia handed Elsie a small piece of charcoal and pointed to a clean pine board beside the sleeping platform. From that day forward, the girl recorded 5 things every morning and every night: the outside temperature, the stall temperature, the temperature near the doorway, the day's moisture mark, and how many days of hay remained. On the first entry, the thermometer read -6 degrees Fahrenheit outside and 35 degrees Fahrenheit inside the shelter. Elsie carefully copied every number. Junia trusted measurements before opinions. For the first time, the little girl felt she wasn't simply being protected. She was helping protect them both. For several nights, the little shelter performed exactly as Junia had hoped. The charcoal board showed steady temperatures, and the wind no longer reached the sleeping corner. Then another set of signs began to appear. The straw near the ceiling felt damp each morning. Tiny beads of water clung to the wool horse pads. A sharper smell drifted through the room whenever the cattle settled down for the night. Heat from living bodies was filling the shelter, but so was moisture from every breath. Junia climbed onto the sleeping platform and pressed her hand into the upper straw. It came away wet. Elsie noticed her mother's expression change. "Did we do something wrong?" Junia looked around the room once before answering. The shelter had succeeded at trapping warmth. It had also trapped everything else. She rested the damp straw in the little girl's hands. Wrong is only useful if it speaks early. Nothing had failed beyond repair. Nature had simply uncovered another lesson. A shelter could become unhealthy if warm air had nowhere to leave. Winter was testing more than their walls. It was testing whether they understood the difference between holding heat and imprisoning moisture. The next morning, Junia changed the shelter instead of defending it. Using a narrow chisel, she opened a vent no wider than her wrist high along the sheltered east wall, where the prevailing wind could not drive snow inside. Warm, damp air finally had a slow path to escape. She then dug a shallow, cold sump into the western corner below floor level. Heavy air naturally settled there instead of lingering around the bed. Every bundle of damp straw was carried outside and replaced with fresh rye straw, while a thin layer of fine wood ash was scattered beneath the bedding to absorb lingering moisture before it spread. That evening, Elsie copied a new set of numbers onto the pine board. Outside, -11 degrees Fahrenheit. Inside, 33 degrees Fahrenheit. The shelter had lost only 2 degrees. The damp smell, however, was almost gone. Before climbing into bed, Elsie paused beside yesterday's moisture mark. She smiled, then wrote a single new word beside it: dry. Junia glanced at the board without saying anything. The system had become slightly cooler, yet far healthier. It was a small victory, invisible to anyone outside the barn, but one that winter itself had quietly approved. As January wore on, the barn became the easiest place in the settlement to talk about and the last place anyone wanted to enter. Reverend Enoch Bale stopped by one afternoon and gently urged Junia to accept Bram's arrangement. Peace within a family, he said, was often worth more than winning an argument. Junia thanked him for coming and returned to stacking feed. Larkin Mowry laughed whenever someone mentioned the little stove. "Too little wood," he would say. "That's how winter buries people." Silas Toller, a neighboring rancher whose pasture bordered the Valehart property, rarely laughed. Instead, he stood outside the barn after feeding his own cattle, shaking his head as neighbors gathered nearby. "That child won't freeze first," he muttered. "She'll get sick breathing stock air long before the cold finishes the job." The words drifted through the open doorway. Elsie heard every one of them. Her hands tightened around the feed bucket until her knuckles turned pale. For a moment she looked toward her mother, hoping she would answer, defend herself, or send the men away. Junia did none of those things. She checked the thermometer, brushed a little loose straw back into place, and quietly added another mark to the charcoal board. Opinions changed with every conversation. Measurements did not. Outside, the voices eventually faded into the wind. Inside, the work continued. Elsie lowered her eyes and followed her mother's example. though one thought lingered long after the footsteps disappeared. The grown-ups truly believed her mother was going to kill her by trying to fight off a prairie winter with nothing but straw and the breath of livestock instead of a proper fire. The first true test arrived 3 nights before the blizzard. A hard north wind swept across Rime Creek Table until every board in the barn groaned beneath the pressure. Before turning in, Junia checked the thermometer. Outside, -18 degrees Fahrenheit. Elsie recorded 29 degrees Fahrenheit beside the inner curtain and 43 degrees Fahrenheit in the center of the shelter. Around them, the cattle breathed in slow, steady rhythm, while the little stove glowed with nothing more than a bed of red coals. The system was doing exactly what it had been built to do. That night, Elsie set her piece of charcoal on the wooden ledge, slipped beneath her blanket, and fell asleep without asking the question she had whispered every evening since leaving the house. The blizzard arrived in stages, each one stripping away another layer of confidence from the settlement. The first assault came with the wind. It screamed across the open prairie, forcing cabin doors to rattle against their frames and driving icy drafts through every loose joint in every wall. People fed their stoves harder, believing larger fires would solve the problem. The flames grew brighter, but so did the current pulling warmth back outside. Then the snow arrived. By afternoon, white sheets raced sideways across Rime Creek Table until fences disappeared and every wagon track vanished beneath fresh drifts. Barn roofs blended into the fields. Roads ceased to exist. Even familiar buildings became shadows inside the white haze. When the snowfall finally weakened, the worst part quietly stepped forward. The temperature collapsed. The sky cleared. The wind settled. Cold poured across the prairie, with nothing left to slow it. Cabin walls that had leaked heat all day surrendered even faster beneath the clear night sky. Frost crept over bedroom walls. Water buckets froze solid indoors. Door latches sealed themselves beneath thin layers of ice. Inside the old lambing barn, Junia checked the charcoal board one more time before adding fresh straw beneath the cattle. Nature argued with no one. It simply searched every shelter for the smallest mistake. By the second night, the settlement began losing the fight. Larkin Mowry fed split oak into his stove until the firebox glowed white. Wood disappeared faster than anyone had imagined, yet every loose seam in his cabin quietly carried the warmth away. The larger the fire became, the harder the wind seemed to pull against it. Across the road, Silas Toller and his wife, Mara Toller, burned 2 kitchen chairs before midnight. By dawn, sections of the pine floor had been pried loose and pushed into the stove. The room brightened for a few minutes. Then the heat slipped through the walls as quickly as it arrived. His children lay beneath every blanket they owned, still shivering. Less than 60 feet away, a neighbor stepped outside to reach the well house after sunrise. He never made it back. When the storm finally eased, his tracks ended where the drifting snow had covered him. Inside, cabin after cabin, frost spread across the walls. Door latches froze in place from the inside. Windows turned white. One chimney after another stopped breathing, until darkness settled over homes that had stood warm through countless winters. Silas looked at his children huddled together beneath quilts that no longer held back the cold. The memory of laughing outside Junia's barn returned without mercy. His laughter had filled the air only days before. It could not warm a single pair of small hands now. On the third morning, Silas stepped outside expecting another wall of white. Instead, he saw a thin ribbon of smoke rising above the old lambing barn. It climbed straight into the frozen sky. Nothing else in the settlement was still breathing. He stared at it for only a moment before turning back inside. Mara wrapped both children in every blanket they had left, and together they forced their way through waist-deep drifts toward the only place that still showed signs of life. Junia heard the knocking before she saw them. She pulled aside the outer wool curtain, then the canvas behind it. "Quickly," she said. "Close the first curtain before opening the second. Don't let the cold follow you inside." One by one, they stepped through the narrow airlock. Warm air met them instead of the bitter wind. The cattle rested quietly along the inner wall, their slow breathing filling the shelter with steady heat. The little half-barrel stove ticked softly as the iron expanded. Near the pine board, Elsie looked up in quiet surprise, her hands still faintly dusted with charcoal from her morning task. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Mara lowered her youngest child beside one of the milk cows. Tiny hands reached toward the animal's warm side, almost by instinct. The little girl stopped trembling. Mara covered her mouth before any sound could escape. Tears slipped down her face anyway. Silas looked around the shelter that he had mocked only days before. Nothing inside was extravagant. There were no roaring fires, no piles of expensive fuel, no miracle waiting in the corner. Only careful work, only measured choices. And somehow, they were warm. By the time the blizzard loosened its grip, 13 people had crossed the drifting snow to reach the old lambing barn. Among them were Mrs. Althea Bran, whose age left little strength for another frozen night, and Reverend Enoch Bale, the same man who had once urged Junia to accept her circumstances instead of resisting them. Junia never spoke about proving anyone wrong. She simply showed them the shelter, the small room, the straw-banked walls, the double curtain that trapped warmth between its layers, the narrow vent that carried damp air away without inviting the wind inside, the raised bed resting above dry straw, the cattle standing close enough to share their quiet heat, the little stove that warmed water, instead of trying to conquer the entire barn. While melted snow simmered inside the kettle, Elsie continued updating the charcoal board exactly as her mother had taught her. Every temperature, every moisture mark, every passing day of hay. The numbers never asked for belief. They only recorded what winter had allowed to remain true. Reverend Enoch stood before the pine board for a long time. His eyes moved from the careful rows of charcoal marks to the warm shelter surrounding them. He remembered every word he had spoken to Junia only days earlier. None of those words had kept a single family alive. The little room inside the barn had. He lowered his head without saying anything. Sometimes the strongest confession arrived without a single spoken sentence. The coldest morning arrived beneath a sky so clear it seemed made of glass. A pair of figures stood outside the barn. Bram Veilhart remained mounted for several seconds before slowly climbing down. His hands fumbled with the reins. The tips of his fingers had turned pale and stiff, no longer obeying him. Beside him, Odette wrapped a blanket tightly around her shoulders. Every word she tried to speak dissolved into a rough whisper. Their large ranch house had consumed everything that would burn. The dining table was gone. So were the bookshelves, spare chairs, and even the bed frame. Still, the warmth had slipped away through walls that could never hold it. Neither of them stepped toward the doorway. Neither called Junia's name. She drew back the outer curtain and looked at them for a long, quiet moment. Winter had already said everything that needed saying. Without taking her eyes from the pair outside, she spoke softly. "Elsie, bring another blanket." The little girl hurried to the sleeping platform and returned with one of the quilts they had carried from the house weeks before. Junia held the curtain open. "Come through one at a time," she said. "Close each curtain behind you." Bram lowered his head as he entered the shelter built inside the very barn he had once dismissed as good enough for a widow and her child. Odette followed without lifting her eyes. The nearest milk cow shifted gently, making room beside the warm wall. Junia pointed toward the empty space. "You'll be warmer there." Nothing more was said. No accusation lingered in the air. No reminder of the front door that had closed behind her weeks earlier. The silence settled more heavily than any rebuke could have. Bram stood motionless for a moment before taking the offered place. For the first time that winter, he understood that nature had overturned his judgment long before he ever reached the barn door. When the roads finally opened, people returned to the old lambing barn carrying more than gratitude. Mrs. Althea Brand spoke first. Then the Toller family. One after another, every person who had survived inside Junia's shelter told the same story. They described the warm room, the quiet cattle, the careful workmanship, and the little pine board covered with rows of charcoal marks. Elsie carried that board into the meeting with both hands. Every entry remained exactly as she had written it. The dates, the outside temperatures, the temperatures inside the shelter, the moisture notes, the dwindling hay supply, and, near the end, the growing count of people who had shared the room. It was not a speech, it was a record. Winter itself had written the conclusion between those lines. Bram listened, without interruption. When the final testimony ended, he unfolded the deed he had once used to force Junia from the house. His fingers paused only briefly before he signed the papers, transferring full control of the ranch back to her. He offered no apology, and Junia never asked for one. She accepted the document, then looked toward Elsie. The little girl searched the page until she found her mother's name. It remained exactly where her father had always believed it belonged. Nature had delivered the verdict long before that day. The settlement had simply arrived late enough to witness it. Years passed, and the ranch slowly found its rhythm again. Junia eventually built another house, but anyone expecting something grand would have been disappointed. The new cabin stood low against the prairie, its walls banked with earth, its rooms compact enough that every fire earned its keep. Nothing inside was larger than it needed to be. Every board, every doorway, and every window reflected lessons that winter had carved into memory instead of wood. Elsie grew into a capable ranch woman, yet she never forgot the charcoal board that had once hung beside their sleeping platform. Long after the numbers had faded, she still measured before she guessed, and observed before she decided. Her children learned those habits the same way she had, not from long lectures, but from quiet work repeated day after day. The old lambing barn remained where it had always stood. Junia refused every suggestion to tear it down. Each autumn she checked the straw, repaired loose boards, cleared the little vent, and tested the double curtain before the first hard freeze arrived. Neighbors sometimes smiled at the routine until another bitter winter reminded them why it mattered. On the coldest nights, travelers crossing Rime Creek Table often noticed two familiar sights in the distance. One warm window glowed from the cabin. A thin ribbon of steam drifted above the old barn. From the road, nobody could tell where Junia had chosen to sleep. Perhaps she rested in the house she had finally earned. Perhaps she stayed beside the cattle, whose quiet warmth had once carried her family through the darkest winter of their lives. In the end, that question mattered far less than the lesson she left behind. Fire could make warmth. Wisdom could keep it. And the place chosen to break a widow became the place an entire settlement remembered whenever winter returned.